Alright, hello guys, this is Ryan. I'm going to bring you a video today of a picture I shot 2 days ago at the Savannah River Rapids of a waterfall here. It's a little creek that's right next to the actual canal itself. I picked this photo out of the other ones I had already worked on mainly because of I kind of misshot this one. I shot a little dark, but the reason why I did was because it was so bright at the time. So it kind of will bring up a little bit more of an editing challenge. We're gonna have to at least do a little bit more to it to kind of bring out a more balanced looking photo. So first off, what you think we could do is actually just bring up the exposure a little bit, but what's gonna happen is when we do that, to bring up the shadows right here, we're obviously blowing out the waterfall and this fallen tree back here. So we're not actually going to do that. So we're going to bring it back down to 0 or 0.02. And we're actually just going to edit each part of the photo by itself. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger here. Obviously my settings were set up for something else here. It's one thing I wish Lightroom would do, and it does it on the mobile version of the iPad, is reset your settings every time. That way I don't have to go through and try and reset everything. So we'll start at plus 0.60. We'll see what this brings us up to. And it doesn't look like it's actually going to do much. So we're just going to highlight this area here. And we'll probably just use this brush for this area because I kind of want to get this area back here, but I don't want to use the same brush because they're not the same exposure values. So we'll see what we got highlighted so far. So I've missed some spots right here, here, a little bit better here. Alright, and I actually probably want to hit up down here too, but I might use a different brush for that too. So since we have that area highlighted, we're just going to continue to push up our exposure until we get a little bit more balanced. We'll bring out our highlights so we don't blow out. Here, and actually bump up the contrast a little bit so it doesn't look so flat. Continue to bring it up more and more and more until we get a little bit more believable balanced look here. Bring our temperature down a little bit. And we can bring up our clarity. Bring some contrast to our lights and darks here. So, looking pretty good right there. But it doesn't look complete just because that's the only area right now that's kind of worked on. So, what we'll move on to now is we'll start a new brush. Bring it back down to 50. Bring this down, bring this down, bring this up, and we'll try and hit some of this back here. Now, we can be a little lazy with this part here because it's not really going to matter. You're not going to see too much of a blending issue. So we just want to avoid hitting this tree here because we don't want this highlight to blow out. And I may even hit it just a little bit to see if I can bring out some detail and try and avoid that highlight. So I may just highlight this a little bit and just take down the actual highlight value itself so it doesn't blow out. So we'll continue to bump this up to see how much of a difference we can make here with that. And we'll take our highlights down because, again, I want it to look balanced and even. Bring that up. Alright, that looks good. Now we might be able to get away with using the same brush down here. It's okay to hit this right here. See, bringing out some details that weren't there to begin with. There we go. And see, Whoops. My pointer got stuck. Probably because I came off the screen with it. Alright, so the great thing about with shooting raw, when you by chance would happen to miss shoot and underexpose or overexpose, you can get away with bringing out a lot of detail. So especially like right here in a JPEG, I probably would have lost a lot of this. And if I would try to bring it up, I would probably just be very noisy. So next, we're going to move to the actual waterfall itself because it's a little bright. I really don't want it to look that way. I want it to look a little bit more contrasted and everything. So we're going to bring this exposure value down. Make our brush a little smaller here. And a little tip for people who don't know, when you're using brushes like this, even in Photoshop itself, which we'll go to next when we go to finish this out, if you use your bracket keys next to your P, your left bracket makes your brush smaller and your right bracket makes it bigger, for those who don't know that. And there are websites you can go to and you can actually print off like hotkeys and stuff like that, because they're very easy to learn and remember, and it makes your life a lot easier when you're not having to dig through all of the menus trying to find the setting you're looking for. So we'll actually go over some hotkeys later when I go over to Photoshop, because I'm going to be using a couple over there. There's that, and what we'll do is we'll leave the contrast alone. Let's bring the clarity up a little bit and bring some detail out. We'll drop the highlights. See, there we go. That was our biggest factor right there. I'm gonna bring that down low. We don't want it to be too flat, and it just looks off from the rest of the image. There's that. We just want it enough to not have a blaring bright spot right in the middle of our image. And now while I'm looking at it, I'm actually seeing that it's a little off cant here. So we're going to straighten it up just a little bit. There we go. Let's see what we want to hit up next. I don't know if I want to hit this tree or not. So I think we'll be good with that. So next we're going to hit up, let's check our color profiles to see what kind of difference we're going to look at here. Let's see, vivid. Usually vivid is good if you aren't trying to bring punchy colors out, but it brings a lot of contrast to the scene too. And landscape is a good alternative. It brings your punchy colors out without really darkening all of your shadow areas here. So we'll actually stick with landscape. To bump up the vibrancy a little bit, because unlike most of my dreary, sad looking photos, I actually want this one to have a little bit of punch to it. So we'll hit up our color mixer here, and with each image I like to kind of go through to see what each color is going to look like and how I can affect the scene. So I can actually bring down my luminance a little bit while bringing my saturation up. I think we're just going to leave this one right in the middle. We'll see what our yellows look like. See, I don't want to go down too far because that's very flat. We'll actually bump that one up a little bit. We'll bring this one actually down to the middle too. And just a heads up, this isn't a scripted video. You know, I don't know what I wanted to do with this image when I went into it. So you're experiencing it for the first time with me. You're just getting to enjoy my drawn out creative process I go through with most of my images, where I just kind of go through trial and error to see what I like. I want to make these pop out a little bit, so it's actually probably going to be on my red wheel. Yeah, I already see I'm affecting them. Bump the saturation up, so I want them to stand out. Luminance. We'll check out our magenta and purple here. No. No. Okay, so it was mainly in our red mix. So we'll bring up our overall clarity to the image to about a 10. Now I'll bring our sharpening up. I usually do about 70 to a 30 sharpening. Don't really touch these too much unless I'm shooting with a higher ISO, which more often than not I am not actually doing that. I'm actually seeing some chromatic aberration issues right here. And I might be able to just get away with getting rid of it just like this. No, let's try purple. So that means it's on my red mix. So when I saturated this, I saturated my chromatic aberration too. So what I can do is I can actually probably just, fix that in Photoshop itself. So for now, this is looking pretty good. So what we'll do is we'll Control E. In the new Lightroom CC, it's Control E now to open it in Photoshop. Before it used to be Control Shift E. I don't know why they changed it. It took forever for me to not use that hotkey. And we're waiting for it to slowly open up in Photoshop here. I was hoping that having Photoshop pre-opened would make this go a little faster, but I guess not. So our first hotkey we're going to use in Photoshop is Control J. So what that's going to do is that's going to duplicate your image here and give us an extra layer to work with. That way, if I screw up anything on layer 1 here, I still have my base image to fall back onto, and I can just delete this and then just Control J on this one again. So what we'll do, per usual, I enjoy my knit collection that I don't think actually is sold anymore. I think you can just download it for free. I think I've had this for 5 years now, and I've always used it. So I love the color effects program to it because it gives me a lot of options to work with and how I want to affect my image. And the more I've used it here recently, the less I've used a lot of the filters in it. So the first one I use is my Pro Contrast. As you see, that was the last thing I used, and it saves the setting, which is kind of annoying because I like to start from 0. So for the correct color cast, man, what this will do is its attempt to kind of take away a haze on the image that might be there. So as you see, it kind of cools off our image and shifts our greens to a more yellow, which is not bad. So I might flip over to a 60, and then we can just hit our compare button here, flip back and forth to see what we're going to look like, which is not bad, because what I'm seeing that I like most about it is it's taking the yellow out of this. So next we'll go our correct contrast, and what that's going to do is be a general broad stroke of contrast across the image. So as you see, our highlights are getting brighter and our shadows are getting darker. You see right through here, this is darker and this is brighter when I compare. And then we have dynamic contrast, which just, from my experience, tends to brighten the entire image itself. And when we do that, we can actually drop down our correct contrast. So what we have now is not bad. Next, I usually like to go to the detail extractor, mainly because it just kind of amplifies details on sharp parts of the image, like with our rocks or with the waterfall, but I've been trying to stray away from that just because it gives a little bit of an unnatural look to it. I think for now, I think we'll just stick with this. So just hit OK. Give it a minute to load and process the image over. Alright, so now that we're over here, it actually creates its own layer for me, which is okay because then I could just flip back this one. I just like having a safety net for when I work on these images. So now what we can do is we can do some dodging and burning a little bit here. So what we'll do is we'll dodge again, use our brackets to make our brush smaller and bigger here. And what we can do is I can just dodge this out here, and it's best to use a low exposure value. So I usually stick to 3. You can go up to about 5. Anything higher than that, you're really going to start seeing like a massive difference when you go to use the brush. And I like to make small adjustments at a time, especially with these brushes. So we're going to go through, we're just going to bump some of the highlights in these areas that are a little flat, just to give it a little bit more contrast in the image. And what I like about dodging and burning is it lets me control where I want it to be brighter and darker. So right through here, brightening this up is actually going to make those colors pop a little bit more. Make this a little smaller here, hit that back there. Don't want to affect this tree too much. That, and then now we can flip over to the burn, I'm sorry. And what we'll do is we'll burn some of this here, and this is just going to burn our shadows again with the same exposure value of 3. So what this is going to do is just hit our shadows areas, our darker areas that we select, and allow us to kind of control the contrast. Gives us a way to dynamically adjust the exposure of our images. So I'm going to make this a little bigger. I want to dodge this whole area right here. Do a quick sweep right there, quick sweep right there, quick sweep through here. Okay, so it may not seem like there was a lot of difference I was making there. You probably saw it most right through here, but unfortunately, as I work on my images, I see all the little details and stuff that I miss, and that stuff just sticks out to me. So what we'll go to next is working on these chromatic aberration spots right here. So we'll go to our hand tool, go to 100%. And what I'll do is I'll hit some of these really bright spots to stick out. So again, we'll hit our, what's this one called? Spot healing. There we go. Sorry. And we'll make our brush small. And you see what it does is it just does like a content aware adjustment. And it'll just pick from the surrounding area to clone this part out. So it's just going to allow me to take some of these bright spots out so they don't stick out so much color wise when you look at it. Oop. Those last two were pretty obvious. And I don't want to get carried away with it, because if I do that, then I'm just going to be here all day just taking out all these little spots, which I'm sure you do not want to watch. So we'll go back to our hand tool, we'll fit the screen, and right now I think I might settle on this. This doesn't look too bad right now. I kind of like how this came out. So the last thing we'll do, there's two ways you can do this. You can right click on your background and you can flatten your image, or hotkey time, you can do Control, Shift, and E, and that'll do the same thing. Again, this one's not too hard to look for when you can just right click, but I like the hotkeys. So what we'll do again is Control J. We'll make our layer, and the last thing we're going to do is a sharpening effect, and it's going to be like a faux sharpening effect. So we'll do high pass. We call this high pass sharpening. Now what this will do is it will create a gray sheen across the image, and as you see here, I have my radius at 2 pixels. I never really go above it unless I don't have a whole lot of detail here. I usually stick around 2, and as you see here with all the rocks, the tree here, and the waterfall, you see the edges of all this. So we'll stick it 2. We'll hit OK, and then what you want to do is go to overlay. So this overlays this on top of this image here, and you really can't see much of a difference probably in the video because of the compression, but if you would pay attention to right through here is where I'm seeing it most. It's actually sharpening the edges, and this is a nice way to bring out details. You can do this for portraits. I use it a lot on flowers when I want the image to appear a lot sharper than the camera actually took it, especially if you're shooting on like aperture of like f1.8. When the lens isn't that sharp, being wide open, you can kind of make the image appear sharper than it actually is. Now unfortunately, if you shoot at a high ISO and you use high pass sharpening, it will sharpen all of the noise as well, so you have that issue to deal with too. So that's just a caveat for that. So what we'll do here is we'll right click, flatten image, or Control Shift E, and then for the last part, the most important, we'll go to our brush tool. I've made my watermark a preset brush because then it just allows me to put it wherever I want. So we'll put it right here because it's not intruding on the main subject of the image. Don't know why it did that, which is right in here. So I don't want to put my watermark like right in here or in this area right through here where there's a lot of detail to draw away. So right here will be fine. Usually corners are your best bets. I wouldn't want to put it like right here, and if I put it right here it might get lost. Here might not have been a bad idea either, but right here will be good. So leave that right there. Last thing we'll do, you can either go to File, Save As, or as you see here, the hotkey, Control Shift S. And because of the way that I edit, it exports the image from Lightroom into Photoshop as a TIFF image, tagged image file format. We'll flip it over to JPEG. I upload everything to my OneDrive. This will be under Landscape. Save it there. I don't really name my images anymore because I'm lazy and it's exhausting trying to think of creative names for everything. I put everything at maximum quality now just because with 42 megapixels images, I don't want to lose any of the detail, especially if I happen to print. I want to maintain as much detail as possible. However, especially with an image like this, see, it's not giving me a preview, but I mean, this image is probably going to be 25 to 30 megabytes. So be aware that if you have a high megapixel camera, it's going to eat up a lot of your hard drive. So that's going to be it for this video. I just want to run through this one image. I don't want to make a very long, extensive video like I did the first time with, I think I did 2 images. I just wanted to run through one image, give like a quick overview of how I would edit it. I'll probably end up doing more of this in the future with just one image, because doing multiple images, the videos become 20-25 minutes. The sizes of the videos are massive. It takes forever to upload, and nobody wants to go through that. So we'll just do one image at a time. One image at a time. Excuse me as I learn to speak in this video as well. You get to watch me work on videos and learn how to speak. It's amazing. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching the video. If you want to see more of my work, you can go over to Instagram. The handle is RyanCraftPhoto. I also upload to Twitter, same handle, @RyanCraft Photo. I post regularly every day, 3 times a day, if not more. If you enjoy what you see, give me a follow, give a like, it all helps. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.